this is Eric Thompson. I am president of Peerless Wealth, an SEC registered investment advisor located in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks again for tuning in. This one, it's on credit cards versus debit cards and reward programs. And this subject matter might be a little bit different than some of the other stuff I do. Most of the other stuff is on investments and markets and retirement planning and so forth. But you know, we all have to pick a method of spending, and we all have to have a budget. Some are bigger than others, but it's important to know, I think, some of these factors. And so for what it's worth, I'm going to give you my thoughts on these things. So with debit cards, it's pretty simple. The money just comes right from your checking account. It's usually either Visa or MasterCard, anywhere those are accepted. It comes right out of your checking account. You can only spend what you have in the checking account. With credit cards, you're actually spending somebody else's money. And that's a very important psychological difference. If you don't pay the balance off, you pay insane interest rates, 18%, 20% higher. But there's a couple other important differences. With debit cards, you have a little less protection on fraud. And what I mean by that is, I'll start with a credit card. With a credit card, if there's a fraudulent purchase, no money has been taken out of your account yet. It's just the credit card company's money. And they will credit that right back after a brief investigation. So you're not out anything. With a debit card, if someone gets a hold of your information or your debit card and decides to go make a trip to Walmart and go crazy, and it works, that will immediately come out of your checking account. You need to monitor your checking account, especially if you're using a debit card regularly for this exact reason. Once you see that happen, you make a phone call to the fraud prevention department. And if it's truly fraud, they will reimburse you, but it sometimes takes a little while. They have to do an investigation. It could take a few days, it could take a few weeks. So from that respect, credit card companies are a little bit safer. However, there have been several major studies that have, in my mind, proven that people that use debit cards for the majority of their monthly spending spend less money than people that use credit cards. And it gets back to that psychology behind it. A debit card, it's your money. Every purchase, your balance is coming down. And so you have that in the back of your mind. You can't spend money that you don't have. Whereas a credit card, it's somebody else's money. So just deal with that later, right? And so people tend to spend a little bit more. And in fact, on average, 52% of people that use a credit card don't pay their balance off every month. So about half of you aren't paying it off every month. And what I hear a lot of people say is, well, I pay it off every month, so I'm getting, free rewards programs, or I'm getting cash back. That may be true, but if you're spending 10% more money because of that psychological effect that I was talking about, if you're spending more on a credit card, or you're not paying it off every month, it'll wipe off many times over the 1 or the 2% reward perks you're getting. So just have an honest conversation with yourself, maybe even do a test run for a few months. And a lot of credit card companies, there's a way you can set limits to maybe where you'll get a notification if it hits a certain amount. Don't underestimate the importance of that psychological difference. And so I'll sort of cut to the chase. If you're somebody that currently carries a credit card balance, or you're somebody that just struggles to stay within a budget and maybe contribute to your retirement accounts because there's not enough left in the checking account, use a debit card. It'll help in most cases. It will help you save money and budget better because of that psychological effect. If you have all your ducks in a row and you're contributing to all your retirement accounts and you're on track and you pay it off every month, use a credit card. That brings me, one other thing about that. Some people say that avoid using a debit card, even if they have credit card debt, and they keep putting stuff on credit cards as they say, well, it'll build my credit. It might a little bit, but all the interest that you might pay if you don't pay it off, the psychological effect of spending more, that's way worse than a few extra points on your credit card or on your credit score. So again, if you have trouble staying within a budget, I would recommend the debit route. If you're good and you're disciplined and you have all your ducks in a row, do the credit card, because yes, you can get some free points, which brings me to reward programs. Again, there's a lot of psychology behind this. A lot of these reward programs and store credit cards are email lists you get on from retailers. It's all an effort to get you to spend and spend and spend more and more and more. You get more rewards if you spend more. I don't need an incentive to spend more. I need an incentive to spend less. So what I do personally in our family is I carry 2 credit cards. One is an American Express, and it's their cashback one. And I put everything I can on that. I like cashback because it goes right to my balance. I'm not a big fan of reward programs that are complicated and you have to do it in certain categories, and maybe you get free airline miles, right? Well, then maybe you take a trip that you wouldn't have otherwise taken. So you save $500 on airline on a ticket, but you take a $5,000 trip that you wouldn't have taken because you want to use that perk, right? So, ultimately the credit card company wins in those. So I like the cashback programs. The only reason I carry a second card, well, for 2 reasons. It's a Costco card, and Costco doesn't take American Express. And we do go to Costco every now and then. And it's I can't remember if it's a Visa or MasterCard, but that's used for places that don't take American Express. That's the only reason we carry the other one. I'm not a fan of all these store credit cards. What tends to happen if you're not careful, sure, you get 20% off your first purchase, but then you get marketed to death, which psychologically gives you the potential incentive to take a trip to the mall you might not otherwise take. And you start having all these little balances, and it's really easy to maybe miss a statement, miss a payment, then you get hit with late charges and interest, wipes out that 20% that you got when you signed up for it. So I just say no to all those. I try not to get on email lists. I just don't want to be marketed to keep going. I don't need an incentive to go spend money. I'd rather people pay full price for something than get 20% off something but spend 30% more money on stuff they don't need. So that's just, don't even get me started on Kohl's Cash. I'm showing my age of knowing what Kohl's Cash even is. But I've heard my friends my age, oh, our Kohl's Cash is expiring. And I'm like, do you know that that's just, you have to drive back to the store later to use it. And then you have to spend more money to get your Kohl's Cash. And then you spend money on gas, you probably go out to dinner, you probably go out to other stores. So just be aware of how all these reward programs are affecting your spending sort of subliminally, and try to simplify your life and stay away. That's just kind of my 2 cents. I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.